Hello, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm sorry.
Italian theater.
The problem is that
Almost Italian.
are really noisy because they are making some works. So you will probably hear a lot of noise. I'm trying to find a place in this house quieter. So I hope it is quieter. So let's start. Algebraic and geometric questions about the electromagnetic helix. There has been a recent proposal to detect dark matter through the Aron-Bohm effect, and it is renovated the interest for cosmological solution based upon magnetic monopoles. So the topic today is mathematical physics, the algebraic and geometric aspects about a physical theory. So, challenging the lambda CDM paradigm, some alternative representation are grounded on magnetic monopoles. So, magnetic monopoles come back after some decades as probable protagonists of new alternative physical theories.
Excuse me, are you already presenting your speech or not?
Yes, the most incredible thing is that
you're welcome.
I presented this speech in 2007, but it was considered, I don't know how to say, the edge of physics because there were no proof, there were no experiments. Now we have some experiments, so I'm going to repropose it. So in 2007, we described the materialization of mass from radiant energy as a process requiring the indistinguishability between the inertial reference frames at v velocity equal to c, speed of light, and those at v minor than c, that is lower than light. Such rigorous interpretation of the relativity principle could clarify the entanglement between temporally separated photons, and this is the main reason why I'm talking today, because in 2013, one of the predictions of my hypothesis, that was the absolute relativity, was confirmed. It is the temporal non-locality, so photons of the past which can interact with photons of the present, temporally separated. It was considered impossible until 2013. The temporal non-locality, and would allow the self-interacting electromagnetic rings, possible at speed of light, reference frames, characterized by a temporality, to be perceived as electromagnetic helices for slower than light observers. So the main concept is this one. If there is the indistinguishability between the inertial reference frame, no matter at which velocity, phenomena at the speed of light that are characterized by atemporality should be perceived also for slower than light observers. It seems a very simple assumption, but the consequences are incredible because something that is a ring bidimensional at the speed of light becomes an helix for slower than light observers. We assume that charge mass, both electric and magnetic, so the notorious magnetic monopoles, could be an electromagnetic helix, thus explaining some intrinsic quantities of particles and the absence of magnetic monopoles at low energies. It is simple as well because if I have to close a ring using electrical forces, they are much stronger than magnetic forces, magnetic field, along an electromagnetic wave. And our model has been indirectly corroborated by the observation of the life self-torque. It was considered, it was never observed, the light self-torque until recent years. And this is another reason why I'm reproposing the talk given at the Italian Physical Society in 2007, but here I'm expanding the algebraic and geometric aspects only. And we are talking about a mathematical physical model. So physics requires a falsification test. Well, at the CERN of Geneva now, there is a falsification test. It is called moidal. It is seeking for monopoles, magnetic monopoles, and to find which is the mechanism of mass creation that until up to date it is still unknown. So, in 2012, the monopoles comes back in cosmology. In 2014, again, in order to explain the dark matter. In 2019, again, but, and again in 2019. So four different alternative theories using grounded on the magnetic monopoles. But in Italy, in 2007, there was a proposal of extension of the relativity principle called the absolute relativity, as I told before, between speed of light and slower than light inertial reference frame. And what are the physical foundation of our model? We assume that the inertial reference frames are indistinguishable independently from their speed, included v equal to c. So this is the reason why the object absolute. Relativity connects photon not experiencing time to matter, namely the electromagnetic rings possible at v equal to c, where time stands still, show up as helices at velocity less than c. The electromagnetic helix, whose inner energy is lower than outer, it is a stable structure, is efficacious to describe mass and charge. The helical model explains, for example, why matter always moves by spin conservation and the scarcity of magnetic monopoles by their instability. And this is the ordinary electromagnetic wave representation. And this is the ring at the speed of light, so a closed ring, and the simultaneous ring omega E, E for electricity, electron, electrical ring, and the ring can also be closed for the other field it is carrying on, simultaneous ring omega B, stationary wave, magnetic self-interaction or electric self-interaction at V equal to C. But we, humble observers at speed lower than c, what would we see? This, an helix. We would perceive it as an helix, an electromagnetic helix. And the most incredible thing is that the perpendicular field would be perceived as spin. So we close by a field and we perceive the spin by the other field. So an electric charge, a particle electrically charged, would have a magnetic spin, and a magnetic monopole would have an electric spin. So the opposite, exactly the opposite. I don't know whether the model experiment at CERN will ever find something like this. If it would be, I would be very happy, but it is just an hypothesis. So we can explain a lot of things by the helix model. So the helix is halfway between a wave and a rotating sphere, a spinning sphere. So the wave-particle duality. The Zeta-Bewegung of particles would be as well explained. Particles of matter are always moving because we cannot have the zero spin. And the helicity of particles, another quantum property, would have a physical, real explanation by the helix model, and the scarcity of molecules as well, because we have that the real electroparticle is 3 multiplied 10 at 8 times more probable stable than the hypothetical magnetic particle. So we could find magnetic particle only at very high energy, very high energy. That is only in laboratories like the CERN or Geneva. There are no other possibilities. We can also explain the quantization of charges, and and that's all for the physical ground. Algebraic and geometric features. A charged particle in uniform electrical rectilinear motion is a constant pitch cylindrical electromagnetic helix. Such uniform helical motion is modified by an energy evaluation, but establishes the charge conservation, that is very important, and quantization by keeping the shape of the initial omega ring. An energy increase for the particle, typically due to the interaction with photons, produces a pitch enlargement. And beyond supplying that mechanism for the generation of mass that should be confirmed at medal experiment at the CERN of Geneva, um, um, from this, our pattern infers the unreachability of the speed of light for massive particles from the inferiority of the advancing velocity with respect to the lateral speed in helical motion. So we have some calculations, velocity and radius of the particles considered in a classical way. It is not a quantum approach. It is a continuum relativistic approach to particles. Another calculation, what happens if a mass considered as an helix will receive some energy from photons? It will change pitch, as we can see here, and calculation shows also how much. Accelerated and decelerated particle. What happens to an electron considered as classical particle in a hydrogen atom? Well, it should look like this. We are talking about the geometry of electron. It seemed, as well as the non-locality, the temporal non-locality, it seems something like craziness to talk about this 13 years ago. Well, it is not like this now, because there is an experiment, we're gonna see it after, about the geometry of an electron in particular conditions. Quantization of the particle's radius, this is a very simple calculation, and quantization and conservation of charge due to the shape, external shape of the ring, electromagnetic ring. Size conservation, it is not possible to change radius and size. So, a model physics should be tested, otherwise they are only nice hypotheses. Practical application, if it should be right, we could purchase the Nikola Tesla dream to find matter from what he considered ether. We know that we are post-relativistic. We know that ether does not exist, but the electromagnetic field exists. And some observations are very encouraging, and they are the reason why I'm here now. Because I've expected years, decades, before having some corroborating tests before speaking again. The temporal entanglement of photons, that is amazing. That is, I think, the most important phenomena ascribable to the absolute relativity principle, and the self-talk of light about the orbital angular momentum. That is not bad, because many people were skeptical about the possibility that light would torque on itself. Promising experiment, the geometry of an electron in quantum dots test. The electrons, they are confined in small quantum dots, and it will be possible to infer its geometry. And among the others, the falsification test. Popper teaches us that nothing is science without a falsification test. So, the Tesla dream. Tesla was not a relativistic scientist. He thought that there was ether, and we know that it is not, and he thought it was very easy to manipulate light, and it is not. But his dream was that we could have formed wheels of ether in order to form matter. It is not like this, but the electromagnetic field, both for the electric and the magnetic field, could be wrapped in this theory I just exposed. So a post-relativistic Tesla dream. And a temporal entanglement of photons, incredible discovery in 2013, absolutely incredible. Photons that never coexisted were successfully entangled. And it is the main reason why I'm here to talk about this theory. The self-talk of light. The self-talk was not realized that light could possess such a property. The quantum dots confirmation test. So, which will be found as electron geometry, it will be a nice confirmation test. And the medal falsification test. How and if the magnetic monopoles will be found here at CERN of Genève, well then all the alternative hypotheses like mine would be tested as well. Conclusions: we suppose that not experiences time at V equals to C, an electromagnetic wave could interact with itself of the past and of the future, generating closed rings. And we propose that such structures will be perceived as electromagnetic helices by slower than light observers. Our model is meant to supply a current frame for the main features of the matter particles and could facilitate the conversion of energy into charged mass, both electric and magnetic, turned into reality the 1908 Tesla's vision. Recent experiments about the temporal locality of photons and the light self-torque seems encouraging, and however, the medal at CERN could falsify the whole theory, disproving the alleged magnetic monopoles or detecting a different mechanism for the generation of mass. And as Richard Feynman teaches us, we have not to be sad if our proposal will be disproved. It is just the game of physics, the game of science. Those are the references, and those are the image credits. And this is that's all.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
You can find this presentation on ResearchGate. It is a public file. And I've also charged it on the chat, on the AGMA chat.
Dear Professor Bonacci, I have a question. What do you mean when we say about unlocality of photon?
Yeah, it is incredible. So we know the Bell theorem. We know that there is a spatial non-locality, space non-locality. But is it possible that photons not temporarily, oh my God, it is a bit difficult. So I will be back to the original experiment. In 2013, you can see the slide here, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem reported that they had successfully entangled photons that never coexisted. So not the usual experiment where you separated spatially particles who had interacted, the famous spooky action, but particles that were not in the same time, in the same place. So same place, but different time. It is absolutely incredible because when I exposed this theory in 2007, rightly, from their point of view, some physicists said, okay, but you are implying a temporal entanglement that has never been observed, such as a photon could interact with the past and with the future of itself. Well, it was a very good point, so I stopped to talk about this hypothesis. But now that it has been proven that the temporal entanglement exists, I've been encouraged to talk about this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. It is always a pleasure to participate in your conferences.
Thank you for your participation.